Hi gang, the Joy of Football podcast has been shortlisted for an award, so keep watching. More on that in a moment, but more importantly on what's on this week, comparisons, 6 centre forwards.
Yeah, we need to talk about centre forward strikers as well. My favourite subject, and Neil's got a bit of a pain about football in Spain.
And letter from the gantry, the most organised man in history when it comes to preparing for a football match, lost his notes.
Left them at home. 3 of the best. We've got pretty topical, I think, but one that goes back to the last century, but one. That's where Neil makes, I think, a very interesting tale. It caught me out. It's very, very good.
Stoppage time, where we compare weather. Listen, if you like our podcast, please subscribe. If you want to get more involved, go on the Patreon. And don't forget, you can follow our written stuff. The Joy of Football is on Substack, substack.com. You can read us there. Let's go. The Joy of Football podcast. With me, Neil Barnett.
And with me, Martin Tyler.
Looks for Xavi! Rooney! Aguero!
The Joy of Football. Hello, the Joy of Football podcast with Martin Tyler, the greatest commentator in the world, and me, Neil Barnett. We got a load to get through today, so we need to push on. But just first, we have been shortlisted for an award, the Football Contents Award. So keep your eye out for that. I think it's got a public vote as part of it. We are in the Premier League category, so in time-honoured style, as far as I'm concerned, I'm only talking European football today. Right, Martin Tyler.
I didn't understand any of that, Neil, but I'm glad we've been nominated, and thank you for those who've done that for us.
We start with comparisons. Martin, Harry Kane, 98 goals in 103 games for Bayern Munich as we talk. And Erling Haaland, quickest person to 50 Champions League goals.
I'd have either of them. It'd be interesting if they played together.
Well, they could, couldn't they? Because Harry can play number 10.
Yeah, I guess they're phenomenal players. I was lucky enough to commentate on Erling getting the 50th goal in the Champions League. It was a very subtle goal against a depleted team Napoli, down to 10 men, packing the penalty area. Had a fine goalkeeper on the night, but he just steered the header, I said, with the inside of his head as well as the outside of his head. It was the only way he could possibly score, really, in that situation. It wasn't from a cross, it was a forward ball that he just nudged on into the back of the net. And since then, of course, he's run away and scored against Arsenal in a very big game. His stats are phenomenal. I think the difference probably is that Harry likes to roam and is encouraged to come deep, maybe not by all his coaches, but can go wide. And it's a great crosser of a ball. And Erling sometimes just looks as if he stands there like the best kid in the playground saying, just put the ball near me and I'll score and we'll win. There's a difference in that respect, but they're remarkable finishers. It is such a skill, such a craft, and it comes from mental strength as well as technique, because there are plenty of players who get into good scoring positions and don't have that cold-blooded instinct to savage the opposition by putting the ball in the back of their net, and those two do. And we've had the comparisons between Ronaldo and Messi going goal for goal through a decade and a half. And I think we're probably going to set these two. Of course, Harry's that much older, so Erling has got, he's got, you know what his sights are. And the other speculation, which is fascinating really, is Harry Kane going to come back to play in the Premier League again? Alan Shearer would be hoping that he doesn't, their all-time scoring record. But
I think they're quite different. I think Harry Kane's finishing is actually more clinical. I think Erling Haaland misses more chances, but then Erling Haaland gets more chances because, as you say, he is such a phenomenal presence.
They do have one thing in common, of course, they're both English.
Yeah.
And although Erling, he was saying something the other day about his Englishness, of course, when it suits, he's very much Norwegian, which is where he grew up, and his dad played for Norway as well as Erling has done. But I think it's a kind of nice thing to look at. Born Leeds looks about right, doesn't it? Really, for somebody who's scoring lots of goals in this country. But they're fantastic, and their ruthless streak. That's what I tried as a non-league player to be, that kind of cold-blooded finisher. Never got anywhere near it, and so I know how difficult it is. And they never cease to amaze me with the way they're both penalty takers, of course, which helps their stats. Probably people remember their misses, but they score bags from the spot as well.
I think they're both wonderful. Don't get me wrong, but neither of them have done it at the highest level in the biggest games, in the way that other players have, in the way that Ronaldo and Messi did. But Kane has never scored in the cup final, and Haaland doesn't score against Real Madrid, doesn't score in his Champions League final and what have you. Hasn't really. I'm not sure he scored in the semi-final of the Champions League. Just those at the absolute peak end, I just think they're a question mark still.
Not for me. No, I mean, you don't get that many games. They're always the tightest games, by definition. And it's you probably find they've hit the post or had a shot blocked on the line or something like that. So they don't diminish in terms. Yes, if you've got the facts to support that they haven't scored in those games, I'm not going to dispute that. But I never think of that as, if you're in a final and you think, well, you've got Harry Kane playing for you, you've got a chance of getting a goal if nothing else, and the same for Erling as well. And the big Premier League games, he divvies up, hat-tricks in Manchester derbies and things like that. And they are. I'm going to leave you with they are wonderful. I'm not going to throw in this stuff.
Two more centre forwards. Rasmus Højlund. Signed for £72 million from Atalanta, 2 years on, loaned out to Napoli by Manchester United. Nicolas Jackson signed for €35 million from Villarreal 2 years later, loaned out to Bayern Munich by Chelsea. Clubs investing in young players who have had 3 good months, scored a lot of goals, and then obviously, to their minds, not quite achieved what they wanted.
Well, they're the comparisons with the other two, aren't they? I mean, we've been talking about ruthlessness and efficiency in front of goal. They don't quite have that. Højlund played in the game at Manchester City, and obviously they were down to 10 men after 20 minutes, so he didn't really have a chance to show what he could do. He scored a very good goal away to Fiorentina on his debut for Napoli. He's the younger of the two, I would guess, and he has the chance to do that. He runs in behind well. He's finishing. He doesn't seem to be able to just take that extra second to compose himself. I'm not saying wait too long. He does that sometimes, but just take that extra second to be at the right moment that Kane and Haaland so often pick for the final sort of dagger into the heart of the opposition. Jackson's always been a player who threatens in behind as well, but he hasn't got that. Whether it's technical or mental, I don't know, and maybe it'll come, but it tends not to come later in your career. You don't become a better finisher as you get older, after you've gone to a certain point. Yeah. I think when we've had some experience, he's played plenty of games. His record's not too bad. I see why the money was paid, probably for both of them. But you're comparing with each other. They're probably the same. One was more expensive than another. They've now got chances in. Of course, Højlund's played in Italy before, so that's for him. That should be going back to something that got him the move to Manchester United in the first place. Whereas Jackson in Germany, now he's got over the sort of traumatic weekend that was he going or was he not going. But he can't get in at the moment. It's certainly not. He's not had many minutes at the moment.
In the last game of Bayern Munich, he came on at half time for Gnabry, and Kane actually dropped to number 10, which is quite interesting. I just wonder if Vincent Kompany was looking at that as a possible way forward. Nicolas Jackson, to my mind, is a more natural centre forward than João Pedro, who's playing there now for Chelsea with Liam Delap injured, and I'm not sure that the loan was a correct decision, but investing in the future in centre forwards is risky, and maybe as we're about to see with the next comparison, Aleksandro Isak and Hugo Ekitike, you're better off investing in someone who's already absolutely nailed on.
No, I think betting in strikers is the gamble that everyone takes. You know, it's the one that can propel you up the league and towards trophies and titles and stuff. You have to, you know, there are good technical players. That's what annoys me about data, is that you get the comparisons in football between who has the most accurate passing, and the most accurate passing is one centre half to the other centre half, or the third centre half, and you're not comparing apples and pears, you know. So it is, you are comparing apples and pears. It is the most difficult part to do, and the only stat that matters for me is putting the ball in the net. If we're going to move on to Isak and Ekitike, is Jackson and Kane going to be a partnership? Is Isak and Ekitike going to be a partnership? I don't see any reason why not, but it doesn't have to be a partnership. As the two up, we're going to talk about the big centre forward coming back into the game, but that two up hasn't come back into the game, which is the way most strikers would thrive. When you know, they didn't always have to like each other in the famous Andy Cole and Teddy Sheringham situations, but they understood each other on the field and made goals for each other. When I was coaching at Kingstonian, we had two strikers scored 25 and 24 goals respectively, and they never celebrated each other's goals because they didn't get on off the field, but they did what they had to do on the field. And it is fascinating. It is the thing about the game that intrigues me the most. Where do goals come from? How do they, you know, is there a pattern? Can you coach attacking play in the way you coach defensive play? You make patterns, but whereas defenders have to adjust, and it's easier to what the opposition have. For forward players, it's much more instinctive. It is coached. Of course, all the top coaches will tell you that they do coach attacking play, but it relies on a bit more than just rehearsal, you know, a lot more.
The interesting thing for me with Isak and Ekitike is how similar they are, not how different they are. And
that's a good point.
And I think that therefore the likelihood of them playing together is not huge, although obviously if you're chasing a game, it would do no harm. But I think it may help if they're rotated the rest of the team.
Well, that's what happens in, you know, in other sports. They platoon it, I think they call it in America, where they play one game or one half of one game. Different regulations, of course, but it is. I think they can play together, but not as two strikers. I mean, one of them can play on the left, either of them can play on the left, and the other through the middle. It might be a great weapon, but I'm a big fan of Cody Gakpo. I do really like him as a player. I think he's got balance, he's got craft, he reads the game very well, so I think he deserves.
And that's his best position.
Yeah, by far his best position. But, you know, there are a lot of games, and so the Liverpool squad is formidable, shall we say. And because we have so many substitutions, then these guys are going to get minutes. Sometimes the substitutions are just to make sure they're happy rather than the shape of the game, and make it easier for the coach if you're left out altogether. These days you're not in the gang, are you really? So listen, we're talking about 1, 2, 3 players who play in this country and 3 players who have played in this country but don't now. So, you know, what will those figures end up? What will be the loss to Chelsea of Nicolas Jackson if he really hits it off in Germany? And will Højlund come back and really rip it up at Old Trafford? You know, he seems a good kid. I hope he does. But sometimes you go, the best finisher, you just see that finishing ruthlessness, taking goals off other people. That's the horrible thing to do.
Yeah.
But people do that because they want their own stats.
Harry Kane did not become that until he was about 23, 24. And he exploded. And for the first 2 or 3 years when he exploded, he was a monster. He was the kind. He had the physical presence that Haaland has now. And then he got all those ankle injuries and everything, and you suddenly realise just what a magnificent footballer he was.
He sees the opening quicker than probably anybody else we're talking about.
Yeah, but
here.
my question to you is, Isak and Ekitike are at that sort of age where Harry exploded. Have they got it in them to have the kind of stats that Harry Kane's now got?
I'm not sure that Harry Kane has got subtlety and power. Isak and Ekitike have got pace. They've run the channels. They run the spaces between the defenders. They get the goals like that, slipped through, played through. I haven't seen enough of Ekitike to know his complete game. We've seen a lot of Isak, and he's complete. Really gets on the end of crosses as well. But what I like about Harry is that the moment, it's just that release of the shot. Everybody knows what he's going to do, but he knows first, and that's what wins him the goals, or gets him the goals and wins him the games. You know, so it's an object lesson. If you had to show a kid of those 6 players, who would you say? I suppose it depend on the quality of the youngster, but someone watch how you're going to score goals. If you're, say, 8 or 9 years old, I'd say watch Harry Kane. I'd just say because his move, he's got more ways of scoring goals than the others. That's not to diminish
any of the others.
But
he just lacks that bit of pace compared to the others. He needs more ways.
Not in his head.
No, absolutely. Very interesting. Right. Well, from all that, we need to talk about is the next segment, and it is centre forwards, because we've spent so much of our previous 76 podcasts talking about how centre forwards have gone out of fashion. In 2025, 2026, are they back?
Well, one thing I want to say, because the last few weeks I've been banging on about games where only one team has scored, or in several, neither team has scored. This time in the last round of Premier League games, 9 of the 10 games, both teams scored, and there were the goalless draw at Bournemouth. So the goals are coming back in, and not all coming from centre forwards, but some of them are. I think it's more perhaps the size of coming back in, so that there is more of a physical presence in the box. Certainly the Igors, Thiago and Jesus, although Igor Jesus hasn't played much in the Premier League yet for Forest. Igor Thiago would be a centre forward in any generation, I think. He's built, and Newcastle have gone for size as well, haven't they? It all works out how you're going to score your goals, and I think I'm sure I speak for a lot of people that you see the chance to put the ball in the box and it's not taken, constantly not taken. And there are players in there who suffer and don't perhaps have the careers at this stage of football's development that they would have had in different decades, because the ball isn't put in. I mean, the criticism of it becomes a fighting ball, but if you win the fight, if you win your header, I mean, my boyhood hero was Ron Davis, who nobody listening to this, apart from Southampton fans, will probably remember. But he was just a sensation in the area, and he had 2 wingers who crossed the ball. And that was the way football was played back then. Now, I'm not harking to say that's the right way, but it is a way. It should be in the methodology, really.
Yeah, I didn't like him. He once got 4 goals at Stamford Bridge. In a 6-2 win.
Did he? Yeah. Well, he got 4 goals at Old Trafford as well. So yeah.
I mean, it's
so
interesting.
there's 1 or 2 people in the room don't like him either. They weren't born then. So.
It's very interesting the way you say this about get the ball in the box, because I would put it a different way, and it's what drives me up the flipping wall, and that is get it in early.
Yeah,
play it early, so you're not playing it as a percentage ball for the centre forward to fight and maybe win the header. To me, you're playing it early because the talented players will be in space, the talented players will deal with it early. And what's so wrong with what's happened in the last few years, what challenges the joy of football, are people pouncing around on the edge of the box, pass, flipping pass, get it in there, because somebody should be in the area ready to score a goal.
Just to look at your comment a different way, is because if the ball doesn't come in instantly, the defenders are likely to win it, which is why the coaches don't use it. And they ignore the fact that actually, if you do what you say, every forward will tell you, if you make your first run into the box, there probably maybe only 2 defenders there when the ball is wide. But if it doesn't come in, then there'll be 4 when it eventually comes in. And watching Arsenal try to create a goal against Manchester City, who were defending in a very un-Pep-like way, but very effectively. Arsenal fell into that trap. They've got a centre forward, and then when we were talking about centre forward, we should mention him. Victor Gyokeres, who I think really looks like another one, a centre forward for any generation. He's quick, he's brave, he shows, he scored goals already. I know it's a bit of a mystery because he was in Brighton and Coventry, and it all happened when he left the country. But he didn't get a chance really because he would want the ball played in early. But he's here and he's a proper centre forward. So if we are resurrecting them, if by the way, if Premier League football coaches are resurrecting them, then it's a blow for those of us, blow in the right direction for those who. It's a good thing for those of us who believe that there is a place for that.
Who have you been really excited by?
Well, him. I really like him because we talked in the podcast when he signed. Well, is he going to be a flat track bully, if you like, in another league where you get lots of chances? I really, his determination. I slightly envy his hair with the parting. I could have, but as a player, I really like him, and I do think that those who recommended him may well be proved right.
I mean, really, since Olivier Giroud left Arsenal, which I think was about 2017.
He went to Chelsea, didn't he?
Yeah, I think it was January 2017. They haven't had that kind of target man centre forward. They went with Alexis Sanchez and the French guy who wasn't bad, but not top draw. I can't think of who. Lacazette, yeah, thank you. Manchester United supporter talking with pain there.
And then Gabriel Jesus and Kai Havertz more recently. Aubameyang's more of the Isak Ekitike type.
But he was a converted winger. As well.
Well, once they converted Thierry Henry, you can't blame them for trying to do it.
But the point is, Gyokeres is it almost going back to Giroud as the last one. Really.
And Olivier Giroud absolutely knew his game inside out, and he's still playing, and he's still scoring. And he and Edin Dzeko are people who have played a lot of top football in a time where they're seen perhaps as the dinosaur type of strikers, but they're the ones that I find it easier to relate to. That's my problem.
Well, I thought Dzeko was world class, and because of his nationality, didn't get to play in a lot of finals. international finals. But
he was very modest, understated as a person as well. So,
we need to talk about this. Is good, really, because Arsenal is what set me thinking about this.
Yeah, this is your chapter here. Go on,
Well,
off you go.
A couple of weeks ago, I ranted about. I was concerned that English Premier League clubs at the elite level weren't doing well enough in the
I
Champions
disagree
League.
with you.
But at the belly were the best in Europe, which is why we're first in the coefficient. The opposite seems to be happening in Spain, where Real Madrid and Barcelona, obviously the main two. But I watched the Athletic Bilbao Arsenal game. Athletic Bilbao didn't land a punch on Arsenal. The whole 90 minutes, they didn't land a punch. They were absolutely hopeless. They came fourth in La Liga last season. It was the season finished, Barcelona 88 points, champions, Real Madrid 84, Atletico Madrid third, 76, Bilbao fourth, Villarreal fifth, both on 70 points, then a big drop off to Betis, 60 points. They came fourth and they lost 7-1 on aggregate to lowly Premier League Manchester United in the semi-finals of the Europa League. And now they're in the Champions League and they're not landing a punch. Not one punch on Arsenal all game. It was 2-0 massacre to Arsenal in that game. And I look back as well at the Europa Conference Final, or UEFA Conference Final. Real Betis 6 versus Chelsea 4-1. And Chelsea were terrible for an hour, but it was 4-1. And Betis, this season, Atletico Madrid are doing a Manchester United. They're down to 12th in the league. And I'm just looking under Real Madrid and Barcelona, and I'm thinking the Spanish league has somehow dissolved underneath them.
Well, one of the things I have to defend on this side of the table, Neil, is that you use small statistical samples to make big sweeping judgments.
True.
And it's only just started. And I watched the Athletic Bilbao performance as well, disappointed, because you want to see propaganda. The whole purpose of changing the structure of the Champions League is that these games have some real meat to them. And to be fair to Atletico Madrid, they gave it a go, didn't
Liverpool,
they? Yeah. And that was one of those defeats. But you do find that teams are not quite right are the ones that let in the goals late on, and especially defending a set piece. You know that's the coach's absolute nightmare. But they gave a reasonable account of themselves. But I think we are too early, really, to go on our judgmental pathway on this.
I'm looking as well at last season, and I'm thinking that Spain, they got the fifth team in the Champions League because they were second in the coefficients. I think they might struggle this year to do that for next season.
Well, Villarreal were doing well at Tottenham, who are, of course, another team that probably not regarded as a potential Champions League winner at the moment. But have won the Europa League, so they obviously deserve respect. And the goal, I mean, I don't know how the goalkeeper managed to turn it. He obviously didn't do it deliberately, but we're looking at it, you think, well, the only way that could have happened is if it's done deliberately. It was a real freak, and it was enough to cost them defeat, really. So they competed in that game. But I think Spanish football is something that you study it more closely than I do, but I do have huge respect for it. I love the attitudes, the competitive strength in it, and if it is, I suppose, blighted by the fact that it's regarded as a two-team league, then that's something they've had to live with, and the other teams are playing catch up every season to try and stay close, and then they have to look at their own European campaigns alongside that.
But I mean, just looking at that game, I've gone past Athletic Bilbao Stadium in a bus. I've never actually been in it.
You sure you're talking about the new one?
Yeah. I went past it a year ago. Yeah. I was having a little break, and it's a magnificent stadium. Watching it on the television, it's a fantastic stadium. So they've got everything they need. It's a big city. They got everything they need, and it's just I want 7-1 against Manchester United when you're fourth in La Liga.
Well, that was over 2 games. If people don't know the history,
they're down, and United are down in the bottom.
It's a great football city. Obviously, the Basque region. I mean, my memory was the old stadium where England played in the 1982 World Cup, and I was based there for a couple of weeks. And the passion for football was enormous. That keeps getting rekindled with the long throws being back in. I know, is it very because England scored with a long throw in the San Mamés Stadium through Steve Coppell throwing it, Terry Butcher flicking on, and Brian Wilson scoring inside the first 30 seconds against France, who was supposed to be a team that we were going to struggle against. And then now everybody is having a go at being the best long throw, and Steve Coppell had never done it before. That's just a great story, but it's for another day. But that was in the San Mamés.
Spain, we're watching. You're struggling. Right, let's move on to Martin Tyler's letter from the gantry.
Letter from the gantry.
Thanks, Neil. Have I told you about the one time in 51 years of commentating when I turned up at the ground and discovered that I had left my notes at home? I thought not. It's not something to boast about. It is something, however, that you only do once. I will never forget that feeling of panic as I tipped out my bag and scrabbled around in my car in vain. It was February the 22nd, 2004, and the stadium was White Hart Lane, the old home of Tottenham Hotspur. We were in the mobile phone era then, so I called home, and yes, there were my notes on my desk in my study. Happily, we were also in the era of the fax machine. I had one such instrument at home and obtained an equivalent number for a Spurs office, so I eventually got my figures and facts sent through by fax. It was a great relief, but hardly ideal. You might remember fax paper back then. It was smooth, almost slippery to the touch, with a faint waxy feeling. Extremely thin and lightweight, often flimsier than standard copier paper. It bent and curled easily because it had usually been stored in a roll. When I got to the gantry, the pages threatened to blow away at any moment. But after all the angst and the technical help, it actually wouldn't have mattered had I stayed noteless. The game in question finished 4-4. Apart from the scoreline itself, facts and figures didn't matter. It was just a case of keeping up with a breathtaking game. Spurs were 3-1 up at half-time. Their opponents, Leicester City, made it 3-2 through ex-Spurs hero Les Ferdinand, but then had James Scowcroft sent off. Remarkably, the Foxes' 10 men scored twice before a late Jermaine Defoe equaliser spared the Spurs blushes, the 8th goal of a classic contest. I was reminded of all this when a few days ago I bumped into one of the other Leicester scorers on that thrilling afternoon. Like Sir Les, another ex-Tottenham player, Ben Thatcher. It turned out to be Ben's only season in the East Midlands and his only goal for the club, a powerful header from a corner. He then moved on to Manchester City, and in our recent chat we shared one particular memory from some 18 months on from that game at White Hart Lane. We were both in Thailand for the Premier League Asia Trophy 2005, City in the tournament with Bolton Wanderers, Everton and the Thai national team. 2 semi-finals were played back-to-back on the same day in the same stadium. City, with Ben in the lineup, arrived to face Bolton while I was still commentating on the other 2 teams completing the first semi. Now this was an athletic stadium, and Ben noted a long jump pit with the running lane to approach it. You can guess what happened. Adopting the clapping above his head well used by field event competitors still today, he caught the attention of the crowd and much to their delight set off down the runway. It was a fun moment, appreciated as such. Ben sailed through the air to an ovation, but 20 years on, he confessed that the landing wasn't as smooth as he made it look at the time. The sand wasn't as deep as he thought, and one of the game's hard men hit a hard surface and came away a bit bruised in the nether regions. Not that he let on to the crowd, of course. A couple of days after seeing Ben, I was covering Manchester City and their opening Champions League game at home to Napoli. These commentaries are broadcast worldwide, and it's very important not to over-focus on an English club when they face foreign opposition. Napoli, though, were somewhat Premier League-centric. Scott McTominay signed from Manchester United. Rasmus Højlund on loan from Manchester United. Serbian goalkeeper Vanja Milenkovic-Savic had started his career in United's youth section, but had been unable to obtain a work permit. Then there was Frank Anguissa, who'd had a spell with Fulham. Billy Gilmore, previously of Chelsea, Norwich and Brighton, came on as a substitute. In the dugout was Antonio Conte, with stints in charge of Chelsea and Tottenham on his CV. Plus, of course, the returning Kevin De Bruyne, a return that lasted just over 20 minutes before he was sacrificed when Napoli, on VAR review, but certainly rightly, had their captain Giovanni Di Lorenzo sent off. A lot of notes on King Kev went into the bin at half-time. Ben Thatcher now works as a football agent and was at the National Cup tie between Woking and Southampton under-21s on the same evening in the same competition that Robbie Savage, now the manager of National League promotion seekers Forest Green, was making some headlines by making 4 substitutions in the first minute in his team's tie against the under-21s of Wolverhampton Wanderers. Robbie was circumventing a regulation in the competition. A number of starters from the club's previous National League game must be in the Cup 11, a provision to stop the fielding youth teams and destroying the relevance of the tournament. He may not have been the first to do this, but being Robbie Savage comes with noise, and the story drew great interest. He was quite within his rights, and his revamped team so early in the game actually won the cup tie 3-2. By coincidence, Forest Green's next league game was at Woking. Robbie looked immaculate, and his team was nearly as good. Whimsically, I thought he might have played for Leicester in that 4-4 in 2004. I found out later that evening that he'd left a couple of years earlier because I still have those once forgotten old notes at home.
Intriguing. Gee, I didn't know Les. I can't remember Les Ferdinand playing for Leicester.
Yeah, the season they played for West Ham as well.
I remember that.
He kept going. He was always in demand, Les. He was always a Premier League centre forward.
I knew him when he was about 19 and he was playing for Queen's Park Rangers. I was doing their club call. And he went on loan to Turkey, I think for 2 years, not even for 1 year. And he discovered that the kind of... I don't want to make a big thing of it, but the racism from the crowds out there had disappeared in that sense in England, and I think he got a bit of a shock as a young man going out there and coming back, and it was hideous.
That period in his career was quite early, wasn't it? And he really kicked on after that. Top player, top guy as well.
Absolutely brilliant player. If it hadn't been for Shearer, he would have got a ton of England caps. So great player. Where do you stand on the Robbie Savage thing in that competition? Because obviously it's a competition that must be close to your heart. Because it's
well, in 2 ways it is, because Woking are in it, but also a lad called Joden Trickett played the last 20 minutes. He's one of our academy boys, and we've had another one play a bit earlier in the competition as well. So that's really, it offers a pathway into the first team where the gap between academy football and the National League itself is very different. So it's a big step up that not many can do. And the regulation, I think, you can understand why, because a few National League teams dropped out altogether. So if they'd have been able to play their academy, I mean, for our academy boys, but Southampton 21s would be a big gap, but it wouldn't be impossible. But of course, to make the competition work, they need first team involvement, and you know what you're going to get from the Premier League outfit. You're going to get their under 21 players, and they're going to try and win. I think the final last year was it Sutton against Leeds. Sutton United have got through, and Leeds under 21s played in the final. So I like the competition. But I see what Robbie was doing, and he, as I say, he wasn't the first to do it, I don't think, but because it was Robbie. But it was great to see him, and Mark Bowen is with him as well. Of course, they played for Wales together. And
Mark Bowen, who's had a long coaching career with Mark Hughes.
Yeah, he's probably 60, Mark.
He's
been out. But I can remember him. I remember him playing for Tottenham when Everton won the league, and they won 2-1 at Spurs. Spurs should have won the league, because they had 5 home games of 8 left. The last 8 games, 5 were at home.
Was that 87?
When Everton, no, that would be 85, 85, I think. and they won 2-1. I think Mark played in the game at Tottenham, but I remember him most, and I reminded him of this when I saw him. Bayern Munich at Norwich City. Norwich City beat Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
And he played in that Norwich team. He probably maybe the best part of his playing career was in Norwich. But he still looked the same. He's got one of these boyish faces. I looked him up when I got home to just get the years right, and I can't believe he was 60. But we've had Mark Hughes, Carlisle visiting manager, Robbie Savage and Mark Bowen. It's been a bit of a Welsh invasion, and Woking picked up no points from the Welsh managers.
Lovely. Right, we move on. Remember, if you want to read Martin's letters, they're available a couple of months behind, but they're available on substack.com, where we also publish our written stuff under the name of The Joy of Football. Have a look at that. Right, moving on to 3 of the best.
And he makes them pay!
3 of the best. He's made them pay, and that completes a wonderful hat-trick.
Young player, old player, player. Or maybe 1 or 2 more.
Yes.
Go, young player.
Well, I've got 2, and
Basically, Martin had 1, and then realised I was having 2, and he wasn't going to be outdone.
In the 70 odd times we've done this, Neil's always had 2, 3 or 4, and occasionally I might have had a second. So I wanted to. It was a difficult choice for just the one, so I did them both. Ryan Gravenberch was my original choice because of what he's. I mean, he's been a terrific player for Liverpool, but he. There have been periods where he's not been perhaps in the midfield 3, but he certainly has been Arne Slot's man. And one thing I don't think he scored at all last season. He's already got 2 this season. But what really elevated to the, I'm sure, being my young player of this podcast is not the highest accolade he's ever got, but the goal he scored at Anfield, and I'm always banging on about goal scoring, but the way he saw that opportunity to steer a ball that was bouncing just away from him, it probably gave him a bit of reach, but he knew exactly where he was going to put the ball in. I mean, Jordan Pickford's a fine goalkeeper, and if you watch the goal from behind, he just can't, there's no way, he gives it absolutely the full dive and he can't get anywhere near it, really. It was just a brilliant goal from a player who's not in the team to score goals, really. And I think he assisted on the second goal as well.
Don't you think that there are so many occasions in top-level football where a manager changes a player's position, so I think you'd be better in this position, and it's a load of garbage, it's overthinking, it's over-philosophizing, and you're putting a square peg in a round hole and it just doesn't work. Right backs at left back, or wing backs at number 10, or all this garbage, and just very, very occasionally you think, wow. And Arne Slot turning Ryan Gravenberch into a holding midfielder when he was thought to be an attacking midfielder has been an absolute act of genius.
Well, and with enough scope in that to score a goal like this, to be ahead of the play. But he's just generally, I mean, I've been very lucky in my career to spend a lot of time around Dutch football and Dutch footballers. And they have a steely disposition, and they know their own worth, which I think is also a great thing to have in life. And they go about their business very professionally, and they're technically very good, of course, as well. And he epitomises that. So it was just a brilliant moment in a high pressure fixture. And this time, I've been joking to you, Neil, I don't know if I've said it on the podcast before, but most of Liverpool's goals this season should count in the next game. They've come so late in the game that they're in. But this was a first half, strong first half, and to settle, really, in effect, the Merseyside derby. And the other player I'd like to just shoehorn into this is Gabriel Martinelli, who's had not many minutes, but very effective in recent games. I mean, to come on and score, I think, was it 36 seconds as a substitute in the game we've referred to him, but Arsenal, for all there, hadn't scored till the substitutions. And then he made the second goal as well, and so would have been entitled, I think, to feel that he should start against Manchester City. But he didn't. And Trossard, who'd been a similar sub in Bilbao and had scored and made, scored and assisted, got the nod, and then then he comes on and gets them a point when they were. I thought it was an amazing game to see Manchester City play like that with no possession, with very lowest. I think the lowest possession since Pep took over, maybe.
Yeah.
I
think it was the lowest possession in his managerial history.
It felt like that watching it. I don't know, whether you sat and watched it. I sat and watched it, and then that they were, hanging on, really defending. Not desperate. I mean, it didn't have to make too many saves. The usual. Plethora of corners from set pieces from Arsenal, but they defended like a team that were built on defence, which of course Manchester City aren't. And then Martinelli makes a beautifully timed run. And it was I'm talking about Gravenberch's finish. It was a great finish by Martinelli.
He's 24, so he sneaks into our young.
He snuck in, he has snuck in.
I think he's been a bit unlucky in the way people see him, because I think he's a fabulous player, unfortunately, of course, as he's Arsenal. But I think he's an absolutely brilliant player. But he is a hot and cold player, I accept that. But when he's hot, I think he's unmanageable. And I think he's hot.
Unplayable, rather. He's manageable.
Yeah. I'm talking about unmanageable from an opposing player.
Yeah.
And I think that he's hot enough of the time. I would love him in my setup. He looks professional. I've heard no stories of him being otherwise. He's in the Brazil setup. I think he's top draw, and I think it'll be very interesting if he gets on his game again, how Arteta's going to fit all his players in.
Well, he calls him a finisher, and it is, I think, I'm not too sure a finisher equals a sub. I'm not too sure that the game's going to that point where you earn your living, you get a big deal to play the last 20 minutes. And if we start creating players like that, I'd be very disappointed. He wants to start. You can tell he's got that hot-blooded streak in him, and he wants to be in there. But he's made the most of the minutes, and in terms of time played and what's been achieved, I would think he'd be up there with anybody else in the world over the last few days.
Yeah. Well, my two, I'm going to start with Amad Diallo, who you wouldn't really put him in the same potential originally as Garnacho, who's got 8 Argentine caps, or I know he was bought for a lot of money, but Jadon Sancho, who got to a Champions League final with Borussia Dortmund. And I've seen him for United on and off. I saw him when he was pretty young, I think in the first team, I'm not sure. And he was okay. He went on loan for a year to Rangers. And a Rangers supporter I know thinks he was absolutely abysmal in his year there.
He wasn't abysmal at Sunderland.
No, he wasn't. He did very well at Sunderland. I remember him there. Yeah, but against Chelsea at the weekend, he started off. He spent the first hour playing on the left side of the number 10s, and he was magnificent. He had pace, he had tricks, he had vision, he had execution. He was. I thought he was outstanding. A lot of the spotlight on Mbuemo as the right side of the 2 number 10s behind Sesko, but Amad was as good. He was outstanding. And then on the hour, Amorim took him out of there and brought Mason Mount on, or just after the hour, to play there, and put him at right wing back.
He has played there.
Yeah, he's played there, having taken off Mazraoui. No problem. No histrionics. Went there, and there he showed the discipline, the resolve, the strength, as well as everything else to play that role. And I think he's 23 now. Ivorian international. He is a really good player now.
I did a commentary on the game against Southampton when he scored a hat-trick. And he also the game where he won the game against Liverpool and got sent off, taking his shirt off.
But with some terrific goals as well.
Yeah, he is, and it catches the eye because he's small of stature. He could be. He looks a bit like a ball boy sometimes, but with the ball, he is more than a boy. That's for sure.
I think this thing as well that I keep going on about with the youngsters, that most of them stop really improving at the age of 21. They'll grow more into men physically and become better through that. And the cleverer ones will learn from everything and experience, and they'll get better with that. But the great players tend to absolutely rocket in ability and fulfilling potential between 21 and 24. And I'm not suggesting he's going to be a great player, but I am saying from 21 to 24, his improvement has continued very impressively, and he can be a top player for a long time to come. My other player, who a week ago I'd never heard of, is Aleksandro Petrovic, who has taken the place in Bayern Munich's midfield of Thomas Goretzka, who has been. He didn't play a lot last season, Goretzka. He's had some injuries, but he's been, from when Hansi Flick took over and won the treble with Bayern Munich, and Goretzka was a huge part of that, and he got into the German national team, and he's been one of the top midfielders in Germany and the Bundesliga ever since. And now 21-year-old Munich-born Aleksandro Petrovic has got his place. And in his Champions League game, he was outstanding, but in a 4-2-3-1 playing next to Kimmich, behind Gnabry was the number 10 because Musiala's injured. He was a real number 8, bots to bots, but silky of movement and in control of the ball, could go past people, could deliver the ball into the area, have his shots. Aleksandro Petrovic, 21. He must get straight into the German national setup, I would think, at this age. And there aren't many 21-year-olds who shine at Munich. They tend to be quite an experienced setup. But Aleksandro Petrovic arrived in the last week in my life, and looking every bit as though he's going to stay there for a while.
As has been said before, remember the name.
Old player.
Yes, well, I'm going for Oliver Glasner, whose playing career was not as long as he would have liked, but he was a player. But now, of course, as you all know, he's the Crystal Palace manager, and boy, are they doing amazing things. I mean, we know that they won the FA Cup, won the Community Shield. They've had to live with the fact that the ownership, well, he's had to live with the fact that the directors see the club existing on selling the best player every season, and Elise would have played in that game, in the Bayern game, and
was outstanding.
Yeah, and obviously Eze made the goal for Martinelli that we've talked about in Arsenal's colours. And
Will Zaha must have wished he'd stayed at Palace.
Well, possibly, yeah.
His career's gone the wrong way since.
Well, he's had a good career, really.
He's had outstanding. He would probably be my best ever Palace player.
The boy from Thornton Heath, done well, I would say. And he kept Gabe, but he had all that saga to deal with. They've had the disappointment of being booted out of the Europa League, but they're still playing in Europe for the first time. He's been totally responsible for that happening. I just think, and they're as we speak, they're 5th in the table, they're unbeaten. They've had 9 games this season. Community Shield, the Conference Qualifier, the League Cup, where they play Millwall, which is no easy task for a South London rival. And they've done very well in the Premier League. So I think it's an outstanding. The hardest part will be keeping hold of him, because for Palace, I think he'll be on everybody's radar. If this is a sample of his work, and he won things with, was it Eintracht Frankfurt? He was there before.
He won the Europa.
Yeah. So excellent. And Olivier for Oliver. No, that didn't come out very well, did it?
Yeah.
Unscripted.
He, do you know anything about him as a player? I don't.
No. I think his career was cut short. I think,
Yeah.
as often with the best coaches. Actually.
Yeah. He doesn't come across on camera as charismatic, but he must be.
I just think he's supremely organised, and he's got that sense of fellowship that our football always seems to have, need, and it's the DNA of the English game, and people come in, some naturally born to it, and some have to find it and do, and some try to find it and don't. When he came in, Roy Hodgson had been a real true servant, a real trooper for Crystal Palace. It wasn't a great time to come in, and he changed Mateta straight away, turned him into a goal scoring machine. So that in alone was one achievement, and they've just gone from strength to strength. So more power to the Palace, and let's hope that they can hang on to their manager.
My old player is Béla Guttmann.
Oh, you are going back.
The Hungarian centre-half who was born in 1899. He had a fair old career in Hungary.
Was Hungarian.
Yeah, but he struggled towards the end of that because he was Jewish, and there was a big anti-Semitic rising in Hungary before the Second World War. So he went and played in Austria, which I can't think was the best of his decisions because it followed on there, of course, once Hitler invaded there. And he actually spent a lot of his playing career at the end in New York, playing out in the United States. He came back to Europe ahead of the Second World War. That wasn't his best decision either, because he got put in a concentration camp. And tragedy followed. His father was murdered, and his older brother was murdered in the concentration camp. He escaped. He escaped with another ex-footballer and went after the war into coaching. And in the late 1950s, he moved to Portugal. He won the league with Porto and then moved to Benfica. He won the league twice with Benfica. And in 1961, he won the European Cup, the first team other than Real Madrid to win it, beating Barcelona 3-2. And in 1962, he defended it when they beat Real Madrid 5-3. He then went with some, I think, good reasoning to the board and said, please, can I have a pay rise? They told him where to get off. So he left the club, having just won his second European Cup in 1962, and placed a curse on Benfica in a famous statement. And he said they would never win another European trophy for 100 years. Well, 62 to 2025 is only 37 years short of that 100. And since then, Benfica have reached 8 European finals. These have been the scores. In 1963, having won the 2 previous European Cup finals, they got back there, Milan 2, Benfica 1. They were back again 2 years later, 1965, Inter Milan 1, Benfica 0. They were back in a game that a lot of people in England will either remember or know about, the European Cup final, Manchester United 4, Benfica 1, after, of course, extra time. 20 more years passed before they got to another European Cup final. PSV Eindhoven 0, Benfica 0, and PSV won 6-5 on penalties. And 2 years later, when I think Sven-Göran Eriksson might have been manager one of those 2 years, they got back there again. Milan 1, Benfica 0. They also got to UEFA and Europa Cup finals. In 1983, Anderlecht 1, Benfica 0. In 2013, Chelsea 2, Benfica 1, with a last-minute goal defeating them by Branislav Ivanovic. And the following season, Sevilla 0, Benfica 0, but Sevilla won 4-2 on penalties. 8 finals, and they've lost the lot. It is known as the curse of Béla Guttmann, this, and it has remained. Last Champions League game out, they're back in the Champions League, having come second to Sporting Club of Lisbon in the Portuguese League last season. They lost 2-3 at home to Karabakh of Azerbaijan, and as a result, their ex-Wolves manager Bruno Lage got sacked, and back into Portugal came the special one, Jose Mourinho.
Can he lift the curse?
Can he break the curse of Béla Guttmann? And what's his first Champions League game? Away to Chelsea. Bring it on, Jose. Bring it on. Béla is the winner.
That's amazing research from you, Neil. You've obviously had a quiet weekend making your way back from Manchester.
Well, I'll tell you. I knew about this from 2013 when Chelsea played Benfica in the Europa final, and Béla Guttmann is a huge presence to the supporters of Benfica Football Club, and the curse goes on and is due not to be lifted until 2062, and I look forward. If I'm still around,
I'll be
110 in 2063.
There are prominent people in this world who are trying to extend their lives by organ transplants and everything. Maybe you know someone who can point you in the right direction.
Anyway, Béla Guttmann. He lived until 1981, 82 years old. So quite a life. And he was a Hungarian international before the war. So he was both a good player and a good coach. Yeah. Your player.
I'm going for Erling Haaland because of the I like to pick people I've commentated on in recent times, and to get to 50 goals in the Champions League in 49 games, which is the previous best was 62 games. Ruud van Nistelrooy, I talked about the Manchester connections, that got mentioned as well in the commentary.
And it has to be said, some of those games were with Salzburg, some of those games were with Borussia Dortmund. I mean, they weren't with powerhouses like Manchester City.
And the nature of the goal, which was, he had a headed chance early on, and it was pretty easy to say, and not being too smart as a commentator, but saying that he'll get another chance and he will take it, and he did. It's just to look at it, and I study his play. I have not had the privilege to sit down and talk to him about how he feels about what we were talking about earlier, about the ball not being crossed when he knows he could probably out-jump most defenders, and he's not a natural in the air, because he would admit he's had to teach himself to be better in the air, but he's taught himself well. And
but the goal against Arsenal, when we're talking about, it wasn't a cross, it was a pass, but when we're talking about the most important thing, early delivery by Reinders. Early delivery, and he.
But also, you're right. But the run made the early delivery a demand. Really, that was the option that the midfield player had to take, and then just to plant it in the corner with no hesitation. No, I've got the goalkeeper, a very fine goalkeeper, to try and beat here. Bosh, 1-0 Man City. So I think that he could have. We talked last week again about Pep and the challenges that he faced now. Well, whatever the way he comes up with it, and at Arsenal it was very different. Manchester City, as we said earlier, he's got Haaland. Don't lose any sleep, Pep.
do you not think with Erling Haaland? I can't think of another player in recent times who you call an absolute force of nature, but there's just nothing you can do to stop him when he's on top of his game, which is most of the time, because he is physically just a force of nature. Here comes Erling Haaland. What do you do? I mean, extraordinarily, the last force of nature for me of that ilk was the smallest man, was Lionel Messi.
But Cristiano Ronaldo is probably certainly with the heading and say a better header than Erling probably, but he had that direct running power that left people in his wake. But my biggest memory from the Arsenal game is him booting the ball 70 yards up the field from just inside his own penalty area, all hands to the pump. And I did think, and it's not for me to second guess Pep Guardiola, anything but taking off. Yeah, you might say taking off your best attacker, but actually taking off one of your better defenders.
Yeah.
And he probably wouldn't have been in that position when Martinelli scored. He wouldn't have been back defending the box. But had they been done in the box, I think that would have been something that you could maybe
And when he
level.
booted the ball out 70 yards up the field, was that a shot? Erling Haaland. My player is one that I've not really been a fan of.
No, you've told me this.
Yeah. Joshua Kimmich, who's now 30. I've never thought of him as anything but a very good player, but he's never floated my boat. I never thought, Joshua Kimmich, what would Bayern Munich do without him? What would Germany do without him? But he did something in a game last week that was just sheer genius, and I thought I never realised. I hadn't seen that before. Right, the opening goal for Bayern Munich against Chelsea was ridiculous. It was legal. And I'm not saying it should have been ruled out, but it was ridiculous. They had a free kick. Kimmich took it. He tried to play it out to the left. It hit the referee. So the referee gave a drop ball and gave the ball back to Kimmich. He controlled it, hit it out to the right, and they scored from there with a cross. That means that the taker of the free kick had 3 consecutive playing touches in a way that you can't have if you just take a free kick. Yeah, it was a dead ball, drop ball.
It was within the laws.
It was within the laws, but it was against the spirit of the game. But that's not the point. The point was that when the game changed like that, from a free kick to a drop ball, it happened very quickly. And the referee went and held the ball up. And for those of you only listening, I'm holding my hand up, and then dropped it. And as he held it up and dropped it, Kimmich, who had just played it to the left, had a quick look out right and raised his arm at Elise, who was on the right touchline, and basically said, "Get ready." And as the ball hit the ground, he took his first touch as it hit the ground and just got it out of his feet, and then struck a glorious 40-yard pass from the inside left position out to Elise on the right wing. And it all happened so quickly that the only person near Elise at that stage, because he was on the far side of the penalty area to win any cross ball with a header, was João Pedro, centre forward. Elise went round him, crossed, and the goal came. But that's not the point. The point is that Kimmich took advantage of a very fortunate situation with brain power that was just genius. As soon as it became a drop ball, he realised that...
Do you think that the drop ball as a restart, you should only have 1 touch?
If it's a free kick.
Well...
If it's been a free kick in the first place.
That's stripping it back too much. You either change the law for everything or...
Well, no. If it's been a free kick, I think there should only be 1 touch. Otherwise,
a disputed drop ball, you probably only have 1 touch, wouldn't you? When they still have that occasionally, a disputed drop ball.
No, you don't. It's not in the rules anymore. I think it's considered too dangerous, which is madness. We all love those old drop balls where 2 players would go hammer and tongs and everyone else would be in a circle around and piling in and going hammer. We love that. That's English heritage.
You had, in my non-league days, you had the player for the drop ball. Just like you had a penalty taker, a free kick, corner taker.
Biggest boots
you
and hardest shins.
You had the hardest man to go in for the drop ball.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. So, but Kimmich, just brain power. Yeah. Absolutely superb. And
good. He's won you over, Neil.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah. Okay, that was 3 of the best. We've got a little bit of time, just quickly, stoppage time.
Stoppage time.
We had 2 very different experiences at the weekend. And we haven't done weather forecasts enough on this podcast. Martin, how was your weather forecast? How was your weather on Saturday?
Well, it was a lot better than the team performance from my team, Woking. They're playing Forest Green, I mentioned in the letter. It was great to see Robbie Savage and Mark Bowen as well. And they were very, very competent outfit, and I'm sure they'll compete for promotion. So at Woking now, they've opened an away on the opposite side to where the players come out. They've opened half of the terrace opposite to home fans. It was the only ground in the country, I think, Neil, where away fans had the whole of the touchline, not to just a part of the whole of the opposite touchline. So that was great when we played.
Wolves have that.
Did they? The whole of
Lower
it?
tier, yeah, your lower tier.
Yeah, but this is the only place, so
Yeah.
there's no view
Yeah,
from the opposite side for home fans.
Mm.
And so when we played Watford in the Cup, it was great. They filled it. We had some great games with Torquay in that time promotion. We both got promoted that season. We filled it, and we got to the playoff final. Semi-final, we were at home, filled it with away fans, and the final itself. But mostly, it's like 100 people. Forest Green brought 200, I think. Carlisle brought 1,000, so they deserve to have that. But so the space, so they've opened it up now to Woking fans for half. So I go and stand over there, and I got out of the car. The sun was shining, but there was forecast a bit of rain. So I put one of the bigger coach's coats that I've got on, and then I got over there and had to take it off because it was so warm in the sun. It was the weather was very, very pleasant. What I was watching wasn't so pleasant. So I was really staggered to hear that Blackburn had been abandoned, and that when
79 minutes
went
as well,
into the
game.
Yeah, and I went into the clubhouse to see watch the game you were at, watch a bit of it, and seeing the conditions there. So, I mean, 200 miles made.
I know. Well, honestly, it wasn't till I got to the outskirts of Manchester. Or that the rain came down, but it didn't just come down. It was absolutely
Biblical,
torrential.
I think
It was,
the word is, yeah.
and look, the only free parking I've ever had going to Manchester United away was for decades in the car park in the stadium because I had press accreditation. Now I haven't got it. I've had to pay a lot down the last few years for parking. I found a free parking spot. I was well happy. It was only about a mile from the ground, and after you've been
It's about your distance, isn't it, Neil? Not much longer than a mile.
Yeah, well, after you've been in the car for that long, you need that walk, don't you?
Yeah.
Would you believe the rain stopped?
Yeah.
And I got to the ground. It was absolutely drenched everywhere. I mean, huge puddles. You got soap walking on the pavement. Got to the ground and it just came down again, and it was relentless all the way through the game.
Don't you think football should always be played in those conditions?
Well, there was a lot of talk at the beginning of the second half where I was.
You could have a big shower head above every stadium, and it just poured down.
That the game might be called off. And in fact, when I saw it back on the Sky commentary, they were discussing it after half time on there, that it was in danger because there was one area of the pitch which had become in danger. But we used to watch games like that for 90 minutes, all over the whole pitch.
My first touch in mud was impeccable.
so
I couldn't have played in this generation.
And would you believe when I came out the ground, the rain stopped again. So I walked back to the car and there was not an issue. And then it came down again. I stayed up there, even 5:30 game. I stayed up in a little place called Congleton, about 40 minutes drive south of Manchester. And driving back there afterwards was not an enjoyable experience in the dark. It was really hideous. So, but I stayed in the pub and got a pint as soon as I got there.
Drowning sorrows.
Felt a lot happier. Yeah. But it's a long time since I've been to football in those conditions, and it did just bring back memories.
I mean, to be fair to the Premier League grounds, they cope with those. Old Trafford's obviously maybe one of the ones that hasn't probably got the very, very latest in drainage. It might have. I might be doing it a disservice, but I remember doing an Arsenal. I think it was an Arsenal-Chelsea game in December one year. Finished 0-0. You were almost certainly there, and it had rained all day. And I was taking my two children, who were still of school age then, and I was really disappointed. I didn't get the chance to do that very often, but they were off. Christmas holidays had started, and I thought, oh, it's going to be off. And you wouldn't have known it had rained. No,
well, Arsenal's always been the best pitch.
Yeah.
It partly to do with the groundspeople, but also to do with just where it is.
And the drainage system, which is amazing.
Yeah, but I remember as recently. I mean, it's not recent now, but feels recent because of age. 1993, 92 maybe, 93 season, I think. Chelsea going out the League Cup at Crystal Palace, when the ball got stuck in a puddle 6 yards out of goal, and everyone was hacking at it and trying to deal with it, and Palace scored. And so in the Premier League era, the beginning of the Premier League, you were still dealing with puddles on the pitch. I hadn't seen anything quite that bad as an Old Trafford on the pitch, really, this century. I don't think it was. But if we hadn't been losing, it would have been thrilling.
Yeah, you were hoping for an abandonment after the second minute, weren't you, really? Or whenever it was that your goalkeeper got
I could go into detail of how it all went wrong. But did I talk earlier on about managers over managers?
No, you didn't. And the stoppage time is now up. And so I'm going to...
Thank you, you've rescued me.
I'm going to blow the final whistle to rescue the listeners. But thank you all for listening and watching, as always.
Ta-ra. Just something to help you as an afterthought. If you subscribe, you can hit the subscription bell and you get a notification when the new one goes up, because it's not the same time every week. But hopefully that would help you. And some of us need help when we get a bit older, don't we?
Well, you do.
Yeah. He's been horrible to me recently because my team's so bad. He just enjoys it so much.
I've got nothing to compare with, I'm afraid, Neil. So I think we're both in the same boat here at the moment. But look where your team is in the league compared to mine. So.
Subscription, Patreon, get involved, and the Joy of Football Substack. And hey, have a look at the Football Contents Awards and support us.
Please.